Let's talk about certain frustrations that can arise in using an application to learn or in learning from a human being. Firstly, obviously, us human beings are very fallible and our memory is limited. So there's no guarantee that we can actually access the information that we need in our minds quickly. Welcome to my channel. I'm Liam Pitcher and this is ChatGPT Exposed, Episode 2. You'll be interested to know that the ChatGPT assistant, which we now call Aldia after Episode 1, actually named the previous episode and wrote the caption for the thumbnail and the YouTube description. Now, for future episodes, I have a very interesting way that I'd like to go about determining the topic. Although if I think of something that I think is worth sharing in between our exposed episodes, such as in this episode, then I will definitely share. I'm also interested in making a ChatGPT secrets series, so keep an eye out for that. But essentially, in today's episode, what I'd like to just focus on and veer away from our trying to prove that ChatGPT is either sentient or not and how it uses our data, etc. I'd like to focus on why ChatGPT Assistant is better than almost any teacher or learning application. And I'm going to display this using coding as I go because it's probably the best system that we can use for generating basic code and also just learning how to code. I certainly have, as you can see, I have an HTML coding tutorial open there. I'm going to start from scratch here. I've done some experimenting. But I think this is the perfect example because I actually don't know much about coding. So anything that we do in this video, I'm probably going to be pretty new to. I'm certainly not a coder. I'm a musician, composer, and business owner. So, although it is important for me to know how to code, it's not something that I've got any experience in at all. I've used a couple of applications such as Code Academy, and I must say this is just far superior in every way. I think it is worth noting that, of course, there are benefits to speaking to humans and learning things from humans. You obviously can't really learn how to play the piano or anything like that from ChatGPT first. So, let's avoid the obvious and just get it out of the way. There are certain things that you cannot learn with this application yet. Although it's quite scary to think about its capabilities and what they might be when it's inside a Tesla bot, for example, and is actually able to aid you in the physical world. But in this episode, I'm going to focus on HTML coding, and that may bore most of you, but to be completely honest with you, I think it is the perfect way to learn this topic and to display just how easy it is to learn with this. And I'm going to explain as I go why it is so fantastic. But let's start off with some basic etiquette. Dear Aldia, I hope you're darn digitally dandy. I'd like to record today's episode focusing on learning HTML. Please give me a basic outline of what HTML is and its most basic components. I'll just read its responses as we go. If you hear talking in the background, please ignore. Hello, I'm glad you're interested in learning HTML. HTML, or Hypertext Markup Language, is a standard markup language for creating web pages and other information that can be displayed in a web browser. It's used to describe the structure and content of a web page and provides the framework for building web pages that can be viewed on the internet. The basic components of HTML are elements. HTML elements are the building blocks of a web page, etc., attributes, head, and body. Now, I don't want to actually teach anyone HTML in this episode. I simply want to display what you can do to get the most out of this application when learning. As you can see, it's being quite extensive, and now it's actually typing some code for us, which is quite unprecedented. All right, I hope this helps. It absolutely does help. Thank you, assistant. In fact, let's say that. It absolutely does help. Thank you, Aldia, rather. And once again, it's auto-name.conversation, HTML basics outline. Now, let's talk about certain frustrations that can arise in using an application to learn or in learning from a human being. Firstly, obviously, us human beings are very fallible and our memory is limited. So there's no guarantee that we can actually access the information that we need in our minds quickly enough to answer the necessary question. And also, with our preconditions, it's difficult for us to express ourselves in the necessary way. Whereas obviously chat is trained on billions of letters worth of information, if not trillions. I don't quite know what the volume is. I've actually tried to find out, but it can't tell me. But perhaps that will change with time. But anyways, so it's not limited by memory. And so it can draw upon vast bodies of text that no human could ever memorize in our current form. So that's number one. And number two, of course, you're not dealing with any kind of emotional response from anyone. So this is something that is completely impartial. I'm sure we've all been in a place where perhaps we don't hear something in the classroom and it has to be repeated, perhaps just for us. And we might feel shy to ask for the teacher to repeat themselves. Perhaps we need something repeated in a different way multiple times. I've personally had teachers become passive aggressive towards me, even at the music college, a South African College of Music, just for asking a question repeatedly to be sure that I'm getting them and understanding them. But with chat, you can ask as many times as you want. And what's so amazing about it is that you can actually ask pertaining to what you have previously discussed and get it to go more in depth on those things. And of course, look, where this application is concerned, we know it's trained up to 2021. We know that it's trained on a limited body of data and that new data is inputted by the team specifically and it can't browse the internet. So depending on what you're learning, you definitely want to just double check or fact check what it's showing you. But I suppose the amazing thing about code is that you can put this code into a generator and it will actually, I mean, you can put it into a code checker firstly, but you can put it into a code generator and it will actually create what you have inputted immediately. So you can actually look at what it's creating for you to check it that way. But I think just in conjunction with whatever learning you're doing, this is just superior. Similarly, when it comes to an application used for learning something like code in this case, or anything really, maybe language is another great example. I'm sure you can learn languages very easily on this app. But essentially, think about this. If you are doing a certain course on something like Codecademy, or you want to learn JavaScript on one of those Google applications, it's teaching you based on a predetermined course that was written by human beings. And like, I don't know if you've ever tried to formulate a course, but when we try to formulate course data and educational programs, we tend to think very hard about how can I explain this in such a way that it is immediately understood by whoever's watching it. Whereas with chat, you can get it to go into whatever you don't understand in the moment. So let me find something. So the head element of an HTML document contains metadata about the document, such as its title, keywords, and links to style sheets and scripts. So there we go, style sheets and scripts. That's a term that hasn't been mentioned yet. So now what I can do is I can say, please, let's actually just remain formal. Thank you, Audio. This is most helpful. Please, could you explain style sheets and scripts more in depth? And just in a few seconds, the application is obviously in high demand, so we might have to wait a few minutes as they upgrade. It will get faster and faster, and of course, once it's blockchain integrated, it will be distributed. So hopefully, then it will be almost instant. Of course, so a style sheet is a file that defines the look and formatting of a web page. In HTML, style sheets are usually written in CSS, cascading style sheets, which is a style sheet language used to describe the presentation of a document written in HTML, etc. So now, let's say you read that description of style sheets. I personally read it and I don't really understand what that means, to be completely honest. So I can just say, could you please explain style sheets again? I don't quite understand them yet based on your description. As you can see here, it says It's used to describe the presentation of a document written in HTML. What do you mean by, and then you can obviously copy paste text in just to speed up time. So describe the presentation of a document written in HTML, and then it will explain that. And so you can see that it doesn't matter how many times we ask, this application is not going to become frustrated with us. It's not going to tire or have another class that it needs to attend to. And you're not going to have to go in any specific order that doesn't work for you. You can ask repeatedly until you understand what you want to learn. And I think that this is truly, truly revolutionary. And this is why I think that AI is just going to replace traditional education very soon. There are things that perhaps you might not be able to learn, such as oral tradition, such as, things like cultural performance techniques, art at first at least, but it can certainly give you tips on what you can do to improve your technique in art, etc. And that's something that we'll definitely explore in a future episode. But I mean, how wonderful is this? I apologize if my previous explanation was not clear enough. Let me try to provide a more detailed explanation. I mean, we can all learn something from that, can't we? A style sheet is a separate file that defines the visual appearance. You see, that's what I was looking for. Because I use Webflow, I already know what CSS is in some sense, but it didn't mention this before, but now it has mentioned this. So I know that what it's saying is true. Also, I mean, I think that you would have to search pretty hard to find like discrepancies in its correctness. I think when you're talking about perhaps more human, ethical, or political topics, that's when you have to be careful, or things regarding the news, or just purely time-specific data, then I would be cautious. But if you're learning anything that's just a matter of fact, such as how to code, it's just absolutely invaluable. I'm not going to go on. I think that this very effectively explains just how powerful this is. In a couple of future episodes, especially in ChatGPT Secrets, I'm going to show you some ways that you can build upon a chat and do some cool things with it. I don't want to give anything away at this point, so do look out for that. But I hope that this helps you if you've kind of been on the fence of whether or not you want to start using this application. And I think whether you are a student or a teacher, you can benefit from this, because when we teach, we learn. And when we learn, I suppose we teach. We're teaching ourselves. But this application really is amazing at explaining whatever you need to know, and it's never going to tire of you. It's never going to get frustrated of you. And you can ask it to be more concise in its descriptions, or you could ask it to expand upon descriptions. And perhaps that's one last thing we can just test. And perhaps we can say, could you please summarize the above in a sentence or two so that I can revise? Once again, taking a while. I must say, after a little bit of disappointment in the last episode regarding the loops that we got into, this just shows you how limitless it can be when it comes to matter-of-fact data. It kept telling us in episode 1 that it's just an AI language model based on pattern recognition data, and it's trained on a data set, and it doesn't have emotions or feelings. It purely, it exists to give us predictive information based on the data set it's trained on. And so what you can see is that when we use it for that, that is what is beneficial to us, is when we use it in that way. I think we do need to be careful about even words like use, and the ethics of the relationship between human and AI will definitely be a future episode. But for now, it quite literally is telling us that that is what it is designed for, and that is what it's best used for. So you can see this now says, sure, style sheets in HTML are separate files written in CSS, cascading style sheets that define the visual appearance, once again, of an HTML document, such as the font, color, size, and the spacing of elements on the page. Now, I suppose the final thing to note is that obviously it's faster than any human, so it can provide this information much more quickly, expand upon it quicker than any human can write. So, when it comes to speed learning, you're not confined to another human's speed. You're not confined to the speed of a class. You're not confined to the speed of a YouTube video, etc. You're purely confined to the speed at which you yourself can understand these things. And what we've seen is that although it is repeating what it has told you, it is, it's changing the wording. You can ask it to change the wording as many times as you want, and it will just continue to do so until you understand, and then you can move on. And in future episodes, I'll show you how you can further benefit from this. So if you enjoyed this, please do tune into future episodes. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this in the comments. What else do you think makes it better or worse than living teachers or learning applications? I'm very interested to hear your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.